Thank you. And I would accept a motion on the minutes for the, what is it, September 20th? We actually have two sets of minutes here. One from the 8th, excuse me. And I'll accept a motion on the minutes from the 8th.
Move to approve the minutes from September 8th.
And that was a special meeting. And David is, okay, David's not here. Okay. Any additions, corrections, deletions for them?
Not for the 8th.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And one abstention, and that would be myself. I would accept a motion for the minutes for September 20th. And well, let's get the motion.
Move to approve the minutes from September 20th.
And we have an amended copy that Chris
Suggested. Yeah.
Suggested, okay.
Yeah.
And so, go ahead.
You want me to explain?
Yeah.
Okay. Down at the bottom, under Selectmen Committee Reports, it mentions that I stated that I recently attended a Planning Commission meeting and gave an overview to the Select Board on the planning implications I learned that were due to the flood. And I suggested adding to the minutes a remark I made saying that the presentation at the Planning Commission meeting included the fact that floodwaters covered the entire area expected to be affected in a so-called 500-year flood within Brattleboro's borders. And I thought it was a good idea to have that on the record because I thought it was just extraordinary.
Okay, and then your second set of...
Yes, on the third page of the minutes, just a couple of clarifications, just to make it clear what we were talking about from the minutes. So I would amend it to the second to last sentence beginning at line 17 to say that Highway/Utilities Superintendent Ethier said that to accommodate a right turn lane at Western Avenue, that's those three words of the new language, it would be less expensive to expand an area on only one side of the bridge rather than expanding both sides. There was further discussion about improving the entrance to the Creamery Bridge, stop signs at the Citizens Bridge, just clarifying that it was stop signs at the Citizens Bridge we were talking about, limiting left turns off the bridge during certain hours, where to add expense into the budget, and then I suggest adding whether to pay for it with a bond issue, and then and whether to ask the Traffic Safety Committee to review the matter.
Okay. All right.
Those were just my suggested revisions to the minutes just to amplify them somewhat.
And I'll accept the motion on the minutes as amended.
I move to approve them as amended.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4-0.
Thank you.
Chair's remarks, I have none. Manager's remarks?
I don't believe I have any as either.
There you go. Select Board Committee reports. Seeing none. Public participation. Here's an opportunity for you to speak about an issue that is not on our agenda here this evening. And we'll give you approximately 2 minutes. If you would go up to the microphone, state your name and the town that you're from. And if it's something that's on the warning, you're unable to speak about it at this time. Well, all these people, and they're all here for other business, so that's good.
Well, we have a public comment by the young gentleman in blue, but I couldn't make it out.
There you go. Take my seat, please. There you go. I would accept the motion to go into liquor commissioners.
Move to go into liquor commissioners.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. We are liquor commissioners.
Okay, first up is a special event permit. This permit is from Whetstone Cider Works LLC out of Marlboro. They would like to hold a special event on October 21st, 7 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. in the Hooker Dunham Theater. This is a fundraiser for flood relief as well as a new business opening and a CD release party. It's three in one.
And a motion for this?
I'll move for the acceptance of the application.
Okay, discussion?
Should we invite the applicant?
Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Yes, sure. Would you like to speak about it?
Sure.
Give you a little free publicity?
Oh, okay. Guess I don't need the microphone. Do I need the
There you
microphone?
go. That's not,
Okay.
that's for the TV.
It's for the TV.
Okay, so basically, I think it's somewhat self-explanatory. We're launching a new hard cider business in Marlboro. We thought it'd be a good opportunity to have a good idea to have like a product release party. In addition, my sister and her husband are releasing a CD. We thought we'd combine the two. And then considering the recent events in Windham County, it seemed like it would make sense to take the door money, some portion of the door money, and donate that to United Way of Windham County for their long-term disaster relief fund.
Very good. And that is going to be October 21st at 7 p.m. to 9:30 at the Hooker Dunham Theater, correct?
That's correct, yes.
There you go.
All right.
And I don't want any. No. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, 4-0. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'll accept a motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners.
Move to adjourn as liquor commissioners?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, 4-0. We have nothing as water sewer commissioners. Unfinished business, board goals and budget schedule, as David is unable to be here this evening, and I'm going to ask to table these two discussions until our next meeting, which I wasn't planning on, at least for the budget schedule, unless David was here, so. Table these to October 18th.
I mean, it's fine. I mean, you know, I hate putting it off again, but I don't want to have a discussion about goals without the full board.
Without the
being
full
here, so-
board.
Can I ask, does the budget schedule, is that something that has to be, setting the budget schedule is something that has to be done during a meeting, during a warrant meeting?
We would like to do that with everybody present, so we can look, because we'll set up at least 2 or 3 meetings, and then as we're moving forward, we'll schedule more meetings if required.
Okay.
So it's good to always have everybody present, rather than say, you know, because if you have difficulty on one day, in the last 2 years, or 3, we've used a Saturday. We spent all day Saturday here, pretty much from 8:30 or
Quite
9
the
o'clock
party.
till 3:30 in the afternoon, which has been somewhat beneficial, I think. Depending upon where we're going, we may not need to do that this year, so, but I see us starting right after the 18th, so.
Just because there's electronic ways to,
We do understand that, but
Okay.
we want the public to,
oh, that's different.
that's, you know,
Okay.
have access.
Ken's looking at me because I had my hand up. I was just going to say that, you know, part of the reason why we do it this way is because it creates an extra burden for staff if we do it the other way, so.
Oh, I'm not like a
This-
doodle poll, which are really effective. Doodle polls, they're great. I recommend them to everyone.
It's a doodle poll.
Everyone indicates their availability.
There we go. Okay,
Try it.
C. We have a loan, RHIP loan approval.
Wait, nope,
Nope.
you missed A and B.
We're not doing this.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh.
Yep.
That's right. Oh, yeah, I wrote the wrong number down here, excuse me. Okay, A, Holiday Brook Road discussion. There you go.
Thank you. The board received, actually, I received, and is now in the board packet, a letter from a couple of residents, a few residents on Halliday Brook Road. I have subsequently also received another email from another resident, kind of agreeing with the sentiment of upgrading the road from a Class 4 to a Class 3 road. What the board is what we're going to do here tonight is, we're going to talk more about I'm going to have Bob Fisher talk about the statutory process and explain the process of reclassifying the road, okay? And then the board can, if the board likes, I guess Bob can talk about what options then are for the board tonight. And I know there are residents here from Halliday Brook Road. So for those who maybe don't know, Halliday Brook Road is off of Sunset Lake Road. It is, it's currently a Class 4. It was Class 4 roads. Basically, the town has minimal requirements for maintaining that road. Basically, the requirements really tend to fall just with bridges or culverts. It was hit hard by the flooding. It was made for some amazing pictures if you're interested. Really actually it was one of those situations where it was really hard to figure out where the road was, where the brook was during that flooding event. The town public works staff have gone out. They have done. They put the road essentially back in place. They may need to go out again and do some additional work on a bridge or culvert. At this point, not that it matters, but just because I know, it was about $30,000 worth of work that's gone in when you look at time and materials. So with that, that's the specifics of kind of the Halliday Brook Road where it is now, and very recent events. I'm really going to ask now just Bob Fisher to talk again, as I said, the process of reclassifying a road. And just so everyone knows, and I think I did email it to the folks who sent the email, emailed back to the folks who sent the email from the statutes Title 19 on laying out, discontinuing, and reclassifying a highway so that people do have something to reference back to.
Bobby, you're up.
Okay, thank you. There are essentially two ways to put this process into motion. One is a petition by 5% of the voters, and the second is the select board on its own motion. So what the residents of Halliday Brook Road have asked in their letter essentially is for the board to consider starting that process on its own motion. If either of those two processes start, then the board sets a hearing. There will be a site visit out at the road, and then a hearing at which then the board will need to determine whether a reclassification is in the public good, public necessity, and public convenience of the town. In reclassifying a Class 4 road to a Class 3 road, the statute makes specific reference that just because there may be other Class 3 roads that are similar in nature to a Class 4 road doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take over a Class 4 road as a Class 3 road. And in fact, they added relatively recently to the statute that consideration has to be given to whether increased traffic and development potential likely to result from reclassification is desirable in accordance with the town plan. I've not taken a look at the town plan, as my understanding tonight is we're just talking process, but that would be one element of what the board would be looking at, as well as Public Works would put together a report, most likely, as to what's needed in order to bring the road up to the town specifications that the town adopted most recently back in May of this year, its town road specification. So tonight you really need to discuss how you'd like to proceed. If the board wishes to have Public Works look into this as far as what's needed. In the past, we've had requests and petitions for reclassification of Class 4 to Class 3, namely Stark Road, I think was the most recent one we dealt with. And there might be one more recent than that. But with respect to when that happens, there are lots of elements condition it. Sometimes it's conditioned upon the landowners along the road paying for the improvements to the road to bring it up to roads standards, and then the town takes it over. Other times, it's a situation of boards look to, well, if we do it here, do we have to do it there? Sort of the slippery slope argument that you'll need to examine and consider. And after that, based on your decision at a hearing, if you were to get that far, then you would issue a decision either granting the reclassification or denying it. If it's granted, then a survey is done. There's what's called a selectman's return, and more sort of a dotting the i's, crossing the t's sort of follow-up to make sure that all of that is documented in the land records and the town highway book, so that in the future people know what the actual classification of the road is. So, in a nutshell, that's the process. Whether that's kicked off depends either on the petition or on the board's motion.
When we bring up, actually Steve's not here, I should have tried to talk to him. You have to elevate the road to the standards if we're going to make this reclassification, then the road has to meet the standards of the class that it's going to. So from class 4 to class 3. And so a couple of things. We have no idea what the cost would be, and not that that's the end and be all here about this conversation. But it would be nice to have some idea of cost, not only for bringing the road up to the standard, but also for the other issues in terms of surveying, what that will be cost to the town to do that.
Correct. The cost is a major factor in whether it's the town that would be paying for that or the residents along the road paying for it. I would venture a guess that either side would want to know what the cost is. But that, the road specifications are available. Those were done
Right.
earlier this year.
Yeah. Barb?
We did speak with Steve a little bit today, and he wouldn't know the cost unless he went out and actually, which he hasn't done. Hasn't had anybody go out and do that. It would require, in this specific road, it would require, a widening and a different type of actual material would be on the road. Because the specifications really doesn't matter what kind of road it is. You have to have, the specifications deal with your drainage, ensuring there's drainage and different things like that. And I know the citizens want to speak as well. The Class 4 road, this has been a Class 4, has been a Class 4 road for quite a while. It was, I think it's been since I've been here, and you folks would know better. It at one point was not, there was the bridge goes out obviously over Halliday Brook, and then the road starts off of Sunset Lake Road. That bridge was rebuilt within the last 8 years or so. And part of that was, decision was made by the board and through a capital plan, because the bridge going over actually at that point couldn't handle the weight of a fire engine. And so that change was made so that would enable would assist in fire protection with that area. More recently, there was essentially a footbridge that was put in towards I guess that's at the end, towards the end of Halliday Brook. I had never realized it went past that one house. I always thought that was somebody's yard. And I guess there was a footbridge that was put in there. You have homeowners that are off of this road, off of Halliday Brook Bridge, but you actually have other property owners, because I think there tend to be some kind of camps up in that area. as well. So that was more of a footbridge or a SUV. They used to drive, and then that bridge, yeah, right. And they put the smaller bridge in, yeah. And there's, that's, again, I think there's different opinions of what kind of bridge should be there. And so that was done. That bridge we don't have to worry about that anymore because that was actually taken out by the flood. So
How many residents are there on Holiday Brook Road?
there are 4 homes?
Four
4
homes?
homes.
Okay.
4, yeah, 4 full-time, then there are some people who have camps.
Not along the stretch that we're talking about.
Further
Yeah.
out, right.
Much further up, yes.
What we're going to do is, I'm going to allow the residents to speak here before. This is not the normal protocol. Normally, we would talk, but I would like to hear from the residents first. So when you come up, please go to the mic and state your name and say what you'd like to say here, if any of you want to speak.
He's our spokesperson.
Hi. I'm Jeff Burgess, and with my wife Karen, we've been the longest living full-time residents on Halliday Brook Road. We've been there for a little over 25 years, 26 years. And in the last 10 years, though, some other people have come and built on the road. And so now there are 3 houses, 12 years ago. So now there are 4 households on 3 houses and 1 with an apartment. And so there's been a lot more traffic on the road coming in and out. And it seems to us that it would be, it seems to be a growing area. Where I live is where the power ends at Halliday Brook Road, so we're kind of at the end, although as Barbara mentioned, it keeps going further as a trail up to some other camps. But for where I live, I'm only 5 miles to exit 2. So it's a really rural area, but it's also very accessible for commuting and for downtown. If it were to be upgraded to a Class 3 road, we would imagine it would be, well, then it would be maintained by the town year-round, and it would increase property values, and probably other people could potentially develop and build along the road as well. So we feel like it would be, it would increase, potentially increase the grand list and other things like that. A couple things about the physical aspects of the road, besides the new bridge that was put in fairly recently. The road is, well, as I mentioned, well, I don't know if I mentioned this, but it's relatively short. So it's only 0.8 of a mile to our house. So it's not like a great length. And it's also relatively flat for Vermont. I mean, it's remarkably flat sitting there right along the brook. So it seems to be, would be something that would be pretty easy to maintain and to keep up once it would hit the standards. And we do really want to thank the Department of Public Works for all they did to help bring the road back after it was really
Good job, Karen.
destroyed.
They were fantastic.
Yeah,
How long have you guys been married?
was the flood issue the driving issue for you coming forward to get this upgraded to a Class 3 road?
It's something we've been talking about for, well, since you guys moved in.
I've been talking about it for 12 years, yeah.
But it really came to the surface. I mead, it was apparent when the road got washed out, and that it needed to be. It would be helpful. It would be, if the road had been stronger, better maintained, it wouldn't have sustained the damage that it did.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Jennifer Curtis. John and I have lived on Halliday Brook Road for about 13 years now. And we've done a lot. Actually, Jeff and Karen have maintained the road with their plow truck initially for years. And actually, throughout time, all 3 of our families have pitched in to be able to, the Clarks have a York rake. We've done quite a bit of work as far as attempting to dig out the ditches, to help, with the drainage. So up until now, it really has, been quite functional. We're quite fortunate that Irene did help us to widen the road. So we feel that after extensive conversations with Steve Barrett over the years, because we have mentioned it, we've had a lot of, like Jeff mentioned, a lot of additional traffic on the road. We have people that walk their dogs. The Cappy family, who just recently moved here from New York, no longer walk on the road in the wintertime because it's too dangerous, because it's a sheet of ice. He actually said he can't believe that we drive our vehicles on it, the stones. But you can kind of see the traffic stop once it starts getting to winter, and then doesn't come back until the summer, when the road is actually, passable. I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Thanks for the consideration.
Just as a point of clarification, probably somewhat for the board, not so much for you, but if this, whether this is a Class 4 or a Class 3, is a separate issue from who plows it. We don't plow all Class 3 roads.
Right.
So that's, it wouldn't change who plows the road. It would just change who maintains the road. As a Class 3, we would be responsible for maintenance of the road.
Right, which generally is year-round for Class 3, which would include plowing. There is the ability in the statute, however, on certain roads, for certain reasons, not to plow. But I would say the general rule is Class 3, you plow and maintain year-round, and it's the exception to a Class 3 road that's not plowed.
Can I just make one last comment?
Sure.
There have been significant amount of hikers, and I know that there's been town hikes that have been implemented through town hikes on Halliday Brook Road recently this past July. So there was a significant number of people, on the conservation land, as well as snowshoers, who we have lots of friends that snowshoe, but have a hard time getting in with regular vehicles in the wintertime. So, there's no question that the traffic would indeed increase, and we'd have a lot more volume if the roads were able.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Okay. Anyone else? If you get up.
Kathleen Clark, and my husband Chris and I also live on the road, and I have the same feelings as Jeff and Jen have stated, and the concern for the quality of the road and the safety. We sand the road by hand with shovels in the wintertime for safety. That's a big issue. We've all slid off the road and having to pull ourselves out. It's difficult. I know for a fact that Jenna tried to get a deduction in her tax rate, her tax amount that they pay every year, but it was a desirable living location, so that the town declined to decrease her taxes. And people do say, can I come out and visit you? Is your road okay? That type of a thing. We all understand mud seasons, we're Vermont, that's understandable. But, the snow and the road gets narrower and narrower, and it's like, it's just, in the wintertime, it's just really, really challenging. And the traffic has definitely increased. And again, the town, we really appreciate everything that they did to bring our road back to the place it's at now. We really, really appreciate that. But in hindsight, perhaps if, we had a quality road that, really had a lot of effort put into it, because it seems, in our years there that, maybe the old duffs that had worked on the road in the past used to dig the ditches, 3 or 4 feet deep, and maybe the young bucks now aren't digging as deep or have different techniques or whatever, and, maybe that's what led to the culvert that gave way with the landslide or, whatever. And so the town agreed to fix our road, and that really shows that they care, that you folks care. And since the money was put into it, to take it one step further and improve it, to make sure that it stays in the quality shape that it's in would be, I think, a really great move for everybody and help us all out. Thank you.
Ken, I thought you had your hand up before.
Well, it sounds like, because it's process that we have to figure out right now. That's what it sounds like to me. And it seems to me the next step then is for Steve to do an assessment in a way that we can sit and look at an assessment. I don't know what form that would take, but it sounds like the grading issue and the cost issue and comparisons to other places in Brattleboro would be really helpful to have in front of us. Because it sounds like conversations have taken place between the residents and Steve Barrett, but not necessarily a formal assessment of the road we're looking at.
No. No, there's not been a
Sounds to me
formal
like that would be
assessment.
then, that would set up this conversation much more solidly.
Yep, I don't disagree. Christopher?
Yeah, I just would like some basic information here. What is the difference between a Class 4 road and a Class 3 road?
Typically maintenance,
Simply-
who maintains the road. I
Simply
mean, that would be
maintenance.
the Class 4 doesn't have to meet any specifications.
Right, with regard to Class 4, and it greatly varies from town to town, but there's no winter maintenance. Summer maintenance is minimal generally, and the towns usually will maintain a bridge or culvert on a Class 4 road, as compared to a trail where, with the town trail, there's no requirement of maintenance of anything whatsoever. That's the major difference between a Class 4 and a trail. Class 4 and Class 3. Class 3 generally is maintained year-round for a typical pleasure car. So not meaning that you have to have a big four-wheel drive pickup truck to get through. And as I said before, there is the ability on a Class 3 road for the select board to say that certain Class 3 roads will not be plowed. But other than that, the maintenance is like any other Class 3 road. Some.
Would there necessarily be any engineering work and any other improvements necessary in the transition from a Class 4 to Class 3 road?
You would engineer the road, yeah.
So there'd be a survey, engineering expenses?
Yes,
Survey is required.
Surveys
Right.
required,
right.
and that hasn't been done yet?
No,
Okay. So what kind of engineering, for additional drainage or widening or
for
what?
drainage, for the width, because you'd have to have it engineered, you'd have to have it engineered to meet the state specifications.
Correct.
Oh, and would it have to be widened? Would it have to be
It would
crowned?
have to be widened, it would probably have to be raised, it would probably require a different material.
So that's trucking in stuff with dump trucks and
Yes.
grading it and rolling it?
Yes.
Would it have to be paved?
No.
No.
Okay. But it would have to be improved, is what I'm,
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah. And so Steve will help us understand how much that'll cost. Okay,
And it might be good for the board if we're taking, is just to look at too, and I mean this, sometimes it's hard to sit up here and say things that seem like I'm going against something, but it's just putting all the information out. It's probably good for the board to know how many miles of Class 4 the town has, how many miles, where those Class 4 roads are, and how many miles of Class 3 we have and other classes. Because it is, it's a process that you go through each time you do it, and that, so some roads are gonna meet the criteria that Bob has talked about, earlier, which is, the public good, et cetera. There were 3 different things that needed to be met. But it's, so each road, the different roads are looked at and assessed on their own merits. But you can definitely, you could anticipate there would be additional requests.
For instance, and we might be getting ahead of ourselves here, but you could possibly, things like the amount of the tax value generally is increased on a year-round maintained road as compared to a Class 4 road. Class 3 roads get a certain amount of state funding per mile of roadway as compared to lesser, if at
Right.
all, funding.
We don't receive any state funding for
Nothing for
Class 4
Class 4.
roads. Mm-mm.
The bridges, that's correct, we do receive for certain.
You don't receive funding
I'll have
for
to
the
look
bridges,
into how we
you get
funded that
assistance
bridge.
with the
I think
funding.
that was
That
entirely
was.
on our nickel.
Was it?
Yes.
Okay, okay,
I can research that, but.
yeah.
but
So there are
Those are
benefits.
sorts of the benefit cost analysis that goes into it.
Right.
So it sounds like the plan of action will be to have Steve come up with a report and get that back to us. And we'll get that back on our agenda.
I'm wondering, because obviously Public Works is really busy right now, and Steve is really busy. I'm
Well,
wondering if maybe we should sort of like date it like post-hot mix plant, when he has more time.
Well, I would ask him to, excuse me, yeah.
Can I just make one more comment? About the town with the fact that they did come through with money to help bring our road back. Steve had mentioned to us several times about federal aid, that they're very unlikely to get reimbursed for FEMA, where if it was a Class 3 road, very likely to get that federal aid to help with the road. And how a Class 4 with the maintaining of the culverts, that culvert that was just before Jeff and Karen's house, has been exposed for years. So, to what level has it, been maintained to is just another thought as you're, going through this process.
Well, we'll have Steve get us a report back for our November 1st meeting.
That is going to be, it's going to be difficult, and the reason it's difficult is if we need any engineering to give us estimates, it's hard to get an engineer right now.
Then
You're
let's-
really not going to be able to do until, like Dora said, after November 15th.
Then let's shoot,
I mean,
I,
nothing's going to happen.
nothing is gonna happen.
Nothing's gonna
Realistic
happen
in the
before
next
next
couple
year.
of months anyway, because you're not going to do road work probably in November. Yeah.
It would-
Okay, so why don't we plan for the first meeting in December, which would be, I think, around the 5th or 6th?
6th.
December 6th, have that report to us.
If that's okay, I mean, if it can be done, that's an end date. If it can be done sooner than that,
That's right,
we
okay,
can always put it on earlier.
okay.
And we typically will let you folks know. I mean,
Be-
typically,
I mean, there
we'll do it at a
certainly,
meeting you can come to.
there certainly are issues here, if we do go through with this process, and there's a cost factor, a significant cost factor, I would suspect, that has to be discussed and figured out. And whether that's done through the capital plan, I think you're gonna get a different experience this year when you look at, when we go through the budgeting process. And, everybody's talking about a zero increase, whether we end up there or not. But the capital plan, there's going to probably have to be significant cuts in the capital plan. And so those will be good discussions for the board as to where the priorities are and what do we take on. I mean, we're having a request here for an upgrade of a road. We have a request for sidewalk from Morningside up into, up to the museum where there's existing sidewalk. So there's need, and it's going to have a huge financial impact. And so it's going to be interesting to see where we put our priorities and our dollars this year, because there's no way, looking at that capital plan, that I think that we can fund everything in it this year. Christopher?
Ken,
Ken,
can we add
excuse me.
one more, can I add one more piece of information to the mix then? Can we also get just a sense of precedent for, I've only been watching the board for a few years, but I don't remember a lot of cases coming before the board of being asked for Class 4s to be turned into Class 3s.
Not
This is
since
the-
I've been here.
Oh,
Not since
that's
I've been
really-
here.
oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so-
I'm sorry.
As Bob and Steve have the same time frame because they've been here for a long time, so they'll
That's
say
helpful.
recently, and that can be anywhere
I
from
don't know.
20
That could
years
be
ago.
20 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's when bow ties were
I
first.
do remember,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember that we did get a petition, 2 years ago, from the residents over on Orchard, who was it?
Brett Road.
Yeah,
And nothing came.
And-
of it.
and they wanted it
that's
paved,
That's
and
a
it was-
development agreement issue.
Oh, that-
They want us to take over the road, and that's a development
no,
agreement
no,
issue.
no,
It's a separate-
they wanted it paved,
It's,
and,
it's a development
but
agreement
we,
issue, though.
and we chose not to, for various reasons.
Okay,
Because it was
so-
recommended by Public
Thank you.
Works not to, so.
We're-
Yeah.
That's what our plan is. We make no promises.
Drive safely.
And So we will wait for that report, and then we will move the process forward from there.
If it
So
makes you
thank you.
feel any better, it is a flatter road, because I will choose to run Halliday Brook than to go up the rest of Sunset Lake, so. Not in the winter, though.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up was supposed to be a discussion on the Citizens Bridge. David actually, who had asked to put this on, this was a topic of discussion at the Traffic Safety Committee, and I would ask that this just be moved to the next meeting,
Yeah.
since when he will be back.
Okay. Thank you.
Next up is the RHIP loan approval, and I know there are several people here to talk about that, and Byron Stuckey being, and Mr. Dunleavy. Okay, great. This is a request through the RHIP, is the Rental Housing Improvement Program loan, and $3,000, and Byron or Mr. Dunleavy will give us the specifics.
Mr. Dunleavy has a home on Williston with a apartment. The apartment has been separately heated by a furnace which has given up the ghost. The loan would enable Mr. Dunleavy to install a new and more efficient furnace. At the same time, he is working with Sevka on improving the weatherization, and between the more efficient furnace and the weatherization, it will be a much improved building. This is the smallest loan request we have ever brought you, yet we have put Mr. Dunleavy through probably more hoops than in any other loan. The result of that is that it's getting late to be without any heat, and so we hope you will be very nice and approve this. You want to add anything to that?
I would appreciate it if you could approve it. Help me get a furnace in there, and make a nice apartment warm.
There you go. Okay. I would accept a motion on the loan agreement.
I move to approve a rental house improvement program loan to Francis Dunleavy for $3,000 for a furnace replacement, with loan terms of 42 months at 3% interest, with payments of $75.33 per month.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Congratulations.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Good luck.
Next, we have Lester and Paul are here from the Energy Committee to, oh, not, I'm sorry, it's not Lester.
It's not Lester.
I'm sorry. Bob, sorry, I apologize. That's why I never say people's names. Here with the Energy Committee to talk about the Quick Start program, seeking approval for the town to participate. Quick Start program is part of the PACE program, Property Assessed Clean Energy. And with that,
So I believe you got most of the material in your packets about that show the letter of interest, which we're asking for your approval on to join the Quick Start program. As it says in the letter, there's no requirement for matching funds, and in the I believe it's the second paragraph, it provides the financial, technical, legal, model documentation, community education materials, training, and other assistance to enable Vermont communities to determine whether they want to move forward with the creation of a PACE district. So this is really the support we need to figure out as an energy committee in a town what this all means. And so that's why we're asking your participation, your approval to participate in this program.
What do you see as your timeline? If this is granted here?
You know, honestly don't know. There's a good chance that we could be coming to you in December or January, asking to move forward with the PACE district. If we're not ready and we don't have all the questions answered, it could be a year after that.
Well, I'm going to support this, and I guess my recommendation would be is, I know that you tried before, there was many open-ended questions, and I would strongly recommend that you if you're going to come back, make sure that you do have all the answers for all the questions, because I would hate to have this, I would much rather see it succeed long-term than try to get back here so we get it on the warning for a town meeting and then have it shot down at town meeting.
I'm totally with you there. I want to see it succeed. And this is how, participating in the Quick Start program is how we get those questions all answered.
Okay.
And if we're not ready, we're not going to move forward if we don't have satisfactory answers.
Mr. Schneck?
What am I missing? I guess because I'm confused as to why it would be shot down. It's not costing us anything. It's a nice designation for the town that we can tell other people that we're doing. And it actually would be helpful for you all to articulate to me why this would be, where the resistance would be.
To participate in Quick Start, I have no idea.
Okay.
I guess my response to that would be, I've seen many a good idea go down in flame at town meetings, so
I
there's
hear
there's no guarantee that town meeting members would approve this without all the answers that people would be looking for. And as soon as you don't have the answers, was one of the issues the last time that this was before us. There was several issues, some with Fannie Mae, and so
Okay.
the experience there at town meeting.
Yeah, and this participation in Quick Start is what gets us those answers.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'll accept the motion.
Hold on. I move to approve the town participating in the Quick Start program operated by VEIC.
Okay. Dora,
Well,
further discussion? Dora?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, you know, there were a lot of unanswered questions, and there's a lot of ways, if we adopted this, that it could be structured, and that's where the sticky wicket would be, because people would want answers as to what the, you know, how all of that would work, and what the repercussions would be, and what the, you know, the liability for the town would be, and I mean, that's one of the reasons why they want to do the Quick Start program, to help them work those issues out, and so.
Great.
And if those questions don't get answered, or if it's not, or if the solution that they come up with doesn't meet the satisfaction of town meeting reps or the citizens, it could fail.
Take notes, absolutely.
Okay. Further discussion, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, the board is asked to award a contract, Cartographic Associates, Inc. They provide our mapping services, tax map preparations, and that is a contract at a cost of $4,800, and it's been $4,800, I believe, as long as I've been here. Mainly, well, a lot of the, it's the same, you have about the same amount of transactions most years, so. And they're updating as there are changes to the maps.
A motion, please.
Move to approve the contract with Cartographic Associates Incorporated at a cost of $4,800 for the preparation of tax maps.
Further discussion? Dora?
Well, I just have a question. What's the potential for needing to put extra money into this because of things like people losing property and the property changing as a result of the flood?
None,
No?
none,
Okay.
because, yeah, no.
Because that came to mind when I was reading through the thing, and it was talking about extra for reconfiguring.
Right, no, I wouldn't, I'm not too concerned about that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Thank you.
Next, the board is asked to accept and appropriate an $800 grant from the Crosby Foundation for the Brooks Library with the intention of using the money to purchase medical books.
And I would accept the motion.
Move to accept and appropriate a grant in the amount of $800 from the Crosby Foundation for the purchase of medical books for the Brooks Memorial Library.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. And flood update, Barb?
Update on the flood situation. The past couple of weeks, we have had two more meetings with the FEMA Public Assistance representatives. And last week and this week, we are continuing to review financial reports from our category A and B. I think the last time, a lot of those, the bills weren't in at the last meeting. More of the bills are coming in. We are closer to about 300,000 in additional costs related to this, to the flooding. The FEMA reporting process, financial reporting process for the public assistance is can be a rather involved process. Public Works has been spending quite a bit of time as bills come in, making sure they go against, they're put in the right project file. We have, they are keeping very detailed project files, actually. They've started a project file on basically every road that they've done work on, different areas for the utilities. They keep different files for whether it was debris removal, whether it was emergency preparation, or work done to prevent continuing erosion, et cetera. So they have a very involved process. Patrick has taken up this week, taken up some of the work with regard to inputting that data into the FEMA forms. That too, as I said, it's the better we are at reporting our costs, the better we will be at maximizing the funding from FEMA. And again, remembering that's a 75% funding. We are eligible for a 15% funding from the state, and that leaves us with a 10% of local money that we'll need to be coming up with. We are anticipating another meeting, either probably on Friday with our FEMA Public Assistance, where we'll be turning in a lot of our actual costs and continued estimated costs. While we're done with most of the debris removal, we still have a couple of places on the whetstone where we need to, I think we're going to be doing some additional debris removal. We are continuing to find some places and continuing to do some work with the emergency prevention work, the Class A and Class B. There still has not been funding released, federal funding released for the permanent work classifications. That's Class C through G. That continues to be a political football in the federal at the federal level. We do anticipate getting that. We are preparing Steve and Rick at this point have moved to, into trying to get some estimates and bids on permanent work. We also then, Steve met with the federal highway. We have 3 federal aid roads that were impacted. Those would be Elm, Williams, and Flat, part of Flat. So those roads actually go through not the FEMA process, but for the federal highway process. We met with those folks. That's a different reporting requirements. They're actually a little less complicated than the FEMA. A lot of that work, it will actually be done, reimbursed at 100%. And so we're getting a better idea of what work they'll actually pay for on those roads. And, actually Williams Street of our roads has sustained quite a bit of damage, and particularly with the bridges, and the state actually, because it's a federal aid road and a bridge, the state is actually, they fixed the Williams Street Bridge. So we've actually expended no funding on that bridge repair. So we continue to work on the public assistance process. We met also this week with some people who are working by contract for the state on hazard mitigation grants. We anticipate applying for as many hazard mitigation grants as possible. There is a cap of $250,000 per application at this point. The town has a hazard mitigation plan. We are going to be putting some grants in for, we're anticipating putting grants in to support the various hazards that we've already identified, and we kind of fund the plans that we have. We will, because the hazard mitigation grant funding doesn't necessarily have to be related to the flooding. So we're going to be putting in some grants for that. We're going to be putting in grants for some of the, putting in new head walls for some of our culverts. And we are also looking at hazard mitigation for some property acquisition, which we'll be talking about, particularly some of the areas in the park where there were homes in the floodway have been significantly damaged. So we're starting some of those discussions. We've run into some confusion in June of 2010. Hazard mitigation grant program was revamped, and this was from the as a result of some of the Katrina issues. And so I think that's the first time that some people have worked under the new guidelines, and so we're working on that. And actually tomorrow morning, Patrick and I will be going up to a conference on hazard mitigation in Rutland. Hazard mitigation funding is essentially FEMA will put 15% of the money of the total public and individual assistance that comes into the state. So if it's however much money comes into the state, 15%, they'll multiply that by 15%, and this additional money will come from FEMA to the state for hazard mitigation grants. The state chooses how they may implement the grants. So, for instance, if the state is putting a $250,000 cap on an application, the state then we have a letter of intent is due December 31st, and the application, I believe, is January 20th. And so that then goes to the state, who then forwards it to FEMA, who actually then will make the final decision on what gets funded. So that's something we're looking at. Patrick has also been looking into additional grant possibilities. So that's kind of mostly, that's the public side. We did have attended a meeting last Wednesday folks from the state and FEMA individual assistance, as well as the Small Business Association, came down to talk with residents from the mobile homes. They've been doing, there is a new, the state, because of the number of mobile homes that were impacted by the flooding, the state has started some new programs for mobile homes. Parks, mobile home parks have some different issues that they're facing, and so mainly because the mobile home tends to be owned by a person, and the land or the pad tends to be owned by somebody else. So those are some of the different issues that they have. That was both an informative and frustrating meeting, I would say. And as we found out some additional information, we continue to work, closely with the folks at the mobile home parks that were impacted. They're kind of at a standstill now, as they are waiting to see, there's almost 100% participation in the FEMA application process by the residents in those parks. Most of them now are in the process where they're getting a denial letter, which about 90% of the people will get a denial letter from FEMA. And then they are in the appeal process. The issue that happens is, until that appeal process is complete, they're really at a standstill with any of the demolition. We've been working with the state and trying to find out about health implications of that, because there can be health implications with that, leaving these homes that have mold, et cetera, in there. So it is a problem. We are trying to find out the best way of dealing with it, and it is not unique to Brattleboro. Brattleboro Housing Authority, they have received occupancy for several units over the past 2 weeks. I have a meeting with the BHA commissioners tomorrow to meet with them on some of their special situations. They do have properties in the floodway. They also have properties in the flood fringe. A FEMA team has come out and resurveyed that to make sure that we have, that the properties are correctly identified as far as whether they're in the fringe or whether they're in the floodway. And so we're continuing to work with them. As you know, both the issues with the homes, properties that were damaged, that have substantial damage, which is over 50% of the damage, or substantial damage is defined as repairs that would be over 50% of the assessed value. If they're in the floodway, they can't get a permit for the repairs. If they're in the flood fringe, they have to take steps to mitigate the flood hazard, and those present specific obstacles to both mobile homes and to the housing authority. However, those are also FEMA flood hazard or flood insurance program rules, and we can at one point say, we don't like these rules, we don't want to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. However, that would also mean that we would not be eligible for FEMA public assistance funding. So part of the fact that we are receiving this funding to assist us in the damage is because we are a participant in the project, or in the program, and it has requirements that we have said we would follow and we will follow. So again, trying to figure out some of the questions are, sometimes we end up with meetings where we end up with more questions than answers, but we continue to forge ahead. For citizens, business owners, I cannot stress enough, if you are denied, if you receive a denial letter for your FEMA application, look at why you were denied. It will tell you on the letter why you're denied. It may be because you didn't have proof of lack of insurance, or you didn't have something from your insurance company that says you didn't have flood insurance, so there was no claim, or, you know, it can be something like that. That's the most typical reason for a denial. You need to get that letter and then appeal the process. You can appeal by just calling up. If anybody has any questions on that, they can contact the town manager's office. We are here to assist. That's one of the things we talked about at the meeting on last Wednesday night, is how can we be of more assistance here. So people can feel free to call me. The other thing that individuals need to understand is you need to fill out this, when you applied for FEMA, when you got your packet, you had, that you received an application for a small business assistance. You need to fill out the application for small business assistance. If you are denied by FEMA, you can go to the small business. They will, by filling out that application, the Small Business Association, they will look at your application, and they may realize that you meet a certain criteria that will send you back to FEMA, and you will get assistance. Okay, so it's more than just applying for a loan. It's not that you're applying for a loan. You don't have to take a loan from the Small Business Assistance Program. But if you do not fill out the paperwork, you have eliminated yourself from grants through FEMA. So that's the reason you fill out that paperwork. Any assistance that people need, you can let us know. We don't know what the need is unless we hear about it, and there are a lot of people who are prepared to assist. There's one other thing I was going to say. Residents, businesses. We still have, and I'm not exactly sure how many, individual businesses were in the Whetstone art building, I'm counting that essentially as one building, as one business, where it's actually more individuals were impacted, more individual businesses were impacted than what I'm counting. We still have at least over 10 businesses that are still out. Have not come back. The Latches is hoping to get back in occupancy in the next couple of weeks. So that will bring one more on, but there still are a lot of people who are out there who do not have assistance. There are special programs for unemployment if people who are out of work because of the flood. You do just need to go to the, call or go to the state unemployment office. The flooding issues are still taking almost close to 100% of the time of our Public Works Administration and the secretarial staff, probably with the exception of our utilities. It's probably taking up close to 100% of the time of our highway people, and it's probably taking, I'm not sure what the percentage with the planning department might be, but I would say our office, it's close to a good 50% of my time is still with flooding issues and with the funding and with that. So it is still, and I say that but just so people understand, this is still a real issue. This is still a real issue for our community. There are still people out there who are now getting into, it's cold, it was okay where I was staying, but now I'm still not in my home. And we're still trying to find if there are people out there who need additional help, if there are people out there that need, that if there are needs out there that are not being met, you know, we kind of need to know that to see what we can do. Because again, if we're unaware of what the need is, we don't have any ability to assist with it. Every week, there is a phone call or a meeting for social service agencies. We are continuing to monitor those, and we will continue to have, you know, there are continuing to be people suffering kind of the emotional toll of not working or not being in their homes, so. And that would be my update. But every day we get better. Every day we have more people applying for permits. And so that's all good.
Dora?
Well, I just want to thank the staff. Getting some of this stuff, the FEMA stuff, and particularly because I'm also on the Wyndham Regional Commission and the Wyndham Solid Waste District, I've been seeing a lot of this stuff, and I'm so thankful that I have a staff, because I can't imagine being in one of those small towns where the select board is responsible for having to deal with all of that stuff, and the complicated FEMA applications. Thank you for all of your work, all of the staff. I just want to follow up because Barb was mentioning if you need help with any kind of flood stuff, please call the town office, call the United Way, contact your church, wherever you feel comfortable asking, getting help, because they can put you in touch with, there are people out there waiting to volunteer. And for people who are looking for volunteer opportunities, and again, Barb mentioned the fact that there are still people that need cleanup and still need help with rebuilding. You should check VermontResponse.com, which there's a link from the Wyndham Status to that. They post things. You can put yourself on the list, the United Way, because they send out information to people about volunteer needs. So please, there's certain, the drop-in center in the United Church for Christ still has flood cleanup and other kinds of things needed for victims. And if you're going to volunteer, you can go pick things up from there. If you need things, you can go yourself. And because I've been attending some of those human services meetings, and we're entering into the part, as Barb said, just the emotional toll that it takes for not being in your house, or not being in the house, not being in work, and for other people, because we have been through this major disaster, and it will start showing its effects on people emotionally, and HCRS is set up to provide a number of different avenues for people to get help. So if you yourself are feeling distress and emotional issues as a result of the flood and things that resulted from the flood, or if you know somebody that is, please contact HCRS, and I believe that the United Way has all of that information available as well, as well as a lot of the other social service agencies.
Meetings.
October 5th, 6 p.m., Human Service.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
I'm sorry, Barbara, the 300,000 is an estimate of like year-to-date total, or?
That's what's been, I didn't bring that sheet in with me. We're anticipating will be closer to 500,000. What the issue is when reports are printed up and what's been through accounts payable and that. So that's where we think we are.
And again, you're talking about all sorts of, you're talking, that's the town total, you're estimating about 500,
For category A and B,
which is?
debris removal and preventative measures or emergency measures. It's none of the permanent work.
So that doesn't include rebuilding roads and bridges?
No.
No,
No.
okay.
And I think that's about where we're at, don't you?
I processed about $230,000 worth of forms earlier today. I'm about halfway through that pile.
Yeah.
And I know not even included in that pile is the temporary bridge at Starks Road. So
So we're probably closer to
I'll have a
7.
much better number.
Yeah, we won't know the
tomorrow.
number until tomorrow, what Patrick's doing is things before they even get maybe into the accounts payable. He's got them entered in through the files.
And the FEMA 75 pound 10, does that cover road work, bridge and culvert work?
Yes.
But that's a separate pile of money. That's not included in the 500,000, or that is bridges and?
The 500, maybe you shouldn't use that. I'm just going on record right now. To say, we're still collecting the information.
That's right.
We anticipate we'll be,
Let's not guesstimate.
Right.
No.
All right, originally said you're at least 300,000 at this point. That's what you said.
Yep,
We'll
easily.
exceed that
Okay,
by a good margin.
thank you.
we can get you, why don't you check in tomorrow and we can get you more information? Or, yeah.
Yeah, we've got a number close to that, if you take a look just at the
The warrants,
warrants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I circled a lot of
It's in
numbers.
well, and there's more too,
Yes,
that you didn't circle.
I recognized that when I read, yeah, when I was preparing for the meeting.
Human Services Review Committee information meeting, 6 PM, October 5th, just as an FYI. The representative town meeting, Human Services Review Committee, this is the start of that process. If you're applying for human services funding through the representative town meeting, this would be a meeting tomorrow that you or your organization should attend. October 6th, 6:30 PM, Skate Park Committee meeting. October 10th, Monday, is a holiday. Town offices will be closed. Tuesday, October 11th, 4:30 PM, Finance Committee in the Hannah Cosman. Wastewater treatment plant upgrade, 4:30 at the wastewater treatment plant, and 7 PM in the Hannah Cosman is the Tree Advisory Committee. October 12th at 6 PM is the Planning Commission in the Select Board Meeting Room. Friday, October 14th is the ADA Advisory Committee at 10 a.m. We will be having that quarterly bar meeting at 10 a.m. 6 p.m. is a Rec and Parks Board meeting at the Gibson Aikens, and 7 p.m. is Development Review Board in the Select Board Meeting Room. Tuesday, October 18th, 1:30 p.m. in the Select Board Meeting Room is the Solid Waste Committee. 4 p.m. is the Town Arts Committee in the Hannah Cosman. And 5:15 p.m. will be CPCC. They're trying to find a new location. And at 6:15 p.m. will be the next regular Select Board meeting. I would request that the board move to go into an executive session to discuss a labor relation agreement. I would not anticipate any action coming out of this executive session.
Is it now?
Have a motion?
Move to enter executive session because the board has concluded that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the municipality at a substantial disadvantage. I invite our town manager, Barb Sondag, and town attorney, Bob Fisher, to join us in executive session to discuss the labor relations agreement. And assistant town manager, Patrick Moreland.
There you go. All
Town
those in-
attorney will not be joining us.
Oh, okay.
All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 4-0. Thank you. Thank you, BCTV.
And we will be back in just to adjourn.
That's correct.
Um,
I don't think we have anything to say.
Is this, well, are we supposed to all sign this?